So listen closely. When darkness wraps the world and dreams begin to stir, you've arrived at the right place. Welcome to Between Dreams and Shadows, the sanctuary of stories that live between sleep and the unknown. Here, every tale is more than a story. It's a portal to hidden worlds, forgotten secrets, whispers from beyond, and shadows that speak as your eyes begin to close. If you're drawn to mysteries, haunting legends, and stories that send shivers down your spine, this channel is your new nighttime ritual. Before we begin, I invite you to become part of this growing nightbound community. Subscribe now, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a tale. New stories drop regularly, always under the veil of night. Like this video if you enjoy that chill before sleep. It helps this channel grow, and lets me bring you deeper, darker stories. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had a strange dream, or felt something watching in the dark? Your experience might inspire the next tale now. Take a deep breath, turn off the lights, leave the world behind, and get ready to drift between dreams and shadows. Setting the atmosphere, the rain had stopped hours ago, but the streets still glistened under the weak glow of the streetlights. Water dripped rhythmically from the edge of the roof, tapping against the metal gutter like a broken metronome. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once and then silence swallowed everything. Elias adjusted the collar of his hoodie as he stepped out of his car. His apartment building looked different tonight. Familiar, yet wrong. The paint, always cracked and weathered, seemed duller, grayer, as if the entire building was being slowly erased from reality. As he approached the entrance, a strange heaviness settled in his chest. It wasn't fear exactly, but something adjacent, like walking into a room you thought was empty, only to realize you were wrong. The lobby smelled like damp concrete and old paper. The flickering fluorescent light above the stairwell buzzed louder than usual. Third floor, apartment, 3B, that was home. Each step up the stairs echoed unnaturally, as though the walls swallowed sound a second too late. On the second floor landing, he paused. Something caught his attention. A small puddle of water. It was odd. The floor above wasn't leaking, and the rain had stopped long ago. The puddle glistened under the dim light, stretching toward the stairs, as if it were trying to follow him. He shook his head, tired, just tired, finally reaching his door. Elias slid the key into the lock. For a brief moment, just as the key turned, he had the unmistakable sensation of someone standing directly behind him. He spun around. Empty hallway, no footsteps, no movement, nothing, but the feeling didn't go away. Inside his apartment, things looked untouched. Everything was where it should be. The cluttered coffee table, the open laptop on the couch, the half-finished cup of coffee from that morning, still, Something was off. A kind of tension in the air, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. A low creak echoed from the hallway behind him. He told himself it was the old building settling, that's all, but deep down, something cold and primal began to stir. A feeling he couldn't explain, a presence he couldn't see, a warning, he just didn't know it yet. The first signs of disturbance. The hours passed, unnaturally slow. Elias sat on the edge of his couch, staring blankly at the muted television. The noise should have been comforting, static voices, flickering lights, but it wasn't. It felt hollow, like background noise in a dream. Then he noticed it. The living room clock on the wall. It wasn't ticking. He stood, walked over, and pressed his ear against it. Silence. Not even the soft mechanical hum of the gears inside. Weird, he muttered. Battery must be dead. But when he checked, the battery was perfectly fine. Then, something shifted. From the corner of his eye, the standing lamp next to the window tilted just slightly, then righted itself. He spun toward. It stood perfectly straight, as if it had never moved. A creeping chill crawled down his spine. He walked over, grabbed the lamp by its post, shook it. Solid. Stable. No way it had moved on its own. Still, His skin prickled with that unnerving sensation, the one that tells you someone's watching when no one's supposed to be there. He backed away slowly, eyes scanning every corner, then tap, tap, tap. The sound of something lightly knocking, but not at the door. From the inside of the hallway, closet. Elias stared at the closet door. It was closed, perfectly closed. Tap, tap, tap. His hands went cold, his breathing shallow. Each inhale felt like swallowing ice. Not funny, he whispered, as if saying it aloud would force reality to behave. Slowly, he approached the door, fingers trembling as they reached for the handle. But before he could grab it, the tapping stopped. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. He stood there for what felt like minutes, waiting, listening. Then a faint movement. Not from the closet. From behind him. He turned quickly. Nothing, no one. But something was different. The small ceramic figure that sat on the kitchen counter, a souvenir from his trip to Venice, was now on the coffee table. He knew, without a doubt, that it had been in the kitchen. It always was. It had never moved. Elias stepped backward, heart pounding, scanning the apartment like he was seeing it for the first time. It wasn't just the lamp, or the clock, or the figurine. It was the way the shadows leaned just a little too far, stretching toward him when the lights flickered. The way the reflections in the window didn't quite match his movements. Heavy, not twisted in his guts. Something was wrong here. Terribly wrong, and it was only just beginning. The sound that shouldn't exist. The air inside the apartment felt heavier, now thicker, almost tangible, like breathing through wet fabric. Elias paced the living room, fingers twitching at his sides. This is ridiculous, he told himself. Stress, overtired, that's all this is. But even as he tried to rationalize it, something deep in his bones whispered otherwise. Then, it began. A sound. At first, so faint that it blended with the hum of the refrigerator. A gentle rhythmic murmur, like distant voices, carried through water. Elias froze, tilted his head. There it was again. Closer this time. A whisper, not a word. Not yet. Just a tone. Soft, deliberate, like someone breathing syllables just beyond comprehension. He muted the television. The whisper persisted. He turned off the fan. Still there. Every logical source of the sound was stripped away yet it grew clearer. It wasn't coming from outside. It wasn't the pipes. It wasn't the building. It was inside. Right here. Elias. The voice breathed his name so soft, so close, right behind his left ear. He spun around violently, knocking over a chair. No one, but his ears rang with the residue of that whisper, a frequency that didn't fade like normal sound, but lingered, as if it were burned into the very air. The apartment felt smaller now. The walls seemed closer, the ceiling lower. Then, beneath the initial whisper, came something else. A hum, a low, droning resonance, not mechanical, not natural, vibrating at the edge of hearing. It pulsed rhythmically, as if syncing with his heartbeat. You shouldn't be here, ... The words didn't come from a mouth. They came from everywhere and nowhere. A sudden bang echoed from the bedroom like a heavy object falling. Elias lunged for the light switch, but the overhead light fizzled, flickered, and went dark. Panic surged. He scrambled for his phone, thumb mashing the flashlight icon. The beam cut through the darkness, but only barely. It seemed weaker than it should be, as if the shadows were swallowing it. He crept toward the bedroom, every step echoing unnaturally. Loud. As he reached the threshold, the whisper stopped. The hum ceased. Dead silence. For a second, a blessed suffocating silence, then click. His bedroom closet door slowly swung open by itself. His breath caught in his throat. Inside was nothing, just darkness, except his phone's flashlight, now trembling in his hand, caught something. Something written on the inside of the door. A word, a single word, smeared in something dark, almost black. Stay. His knees weakened. His mind raced. It wasn't a warning to something else. It was a warning to him, and he didn't yet understand what it meant. The presence without a face. Elias stumbled back. The word burned into his vision. Stay. Not painted. Not ink. Something. Thicker. Something. Organic. His hands trembled as he aimed the flashlight toward the rest of the room. The beam trembled too, carving shaky shapes into the dark. Nothing visible. But the feeling was worse now. That pressure, that unmistakable sense of being watched, coiled around him like an invisible hand closing over his throat. It wasn't just the usual fear of being alone. This was more targeted. His skin crawled as he crossed back into the hallway. That's when he noticed it. The air wasn't just heavy, it was colder. Noticeably colder. Each breath emerged in a faint puff of vapor, as though winter had seeped in only to this space, ignoring the warmth outside. And then a shift. The hallway mirror. He caught it in the corner of his eye. It had moved. Not the frame, the reflection. Elias stopped, slowly turned toward it. His own reflection stared back, pale, hollow-eyed. But the angle was wrong. He hadn't moved. And yet, in the mirror, he was standing half a step closer than he really was. No, that's not right. He lifted his hand. His reflection lifted a heartbeat late. Every muscle in his body went rigid. He stepped back. The reflection did not. It stood there, frozen, staring. Then it smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that could not exist on his own face at that moment. His blood turned to ice. He stumbled backward, colliding with the wall. The flashlight's beam jittered, wildly, catching movement. A soft sound, the gentle scrape of something dragging. He spun toward the kitchen. The ceramic figure, the one that had shifted earlier, was now in the center of the living room floor. Facing him, he hadn't heard it fall, hadn't seen it move. It was just there, staring. Elias single quotes his mind, raced, some part of him begging for an explanation, for logic, for anything familiar. But logic was unwelcome here. The couch creaked. Something sat down. He swung the flashlight toward it. Nothing but the cushion was sunken, pressed down, as if something heavy, invisible, was sitting right there. The air felt alive, not in a metaphorical sense. Alive, pulsating, breathing. Double quotes. Why can't I see you? He choked out, half whisper, half prayer. No response. But deep within the silence, the sound returned. A barely audible voice. A whisper that wasn't meant to be heard with ears, but felt with bone. Because you're not supposed to. The ceramic figure tipped over, fell on its side with a tiny, delicate crack, and the shadows stretched closer. The unspoken warning. Elias backed himself into the corner of the room, as far as he could physically get from the couch, the mirror, and the ceramic figure now lying on its side, fractured but not broken. His flashlight flickered, the beam weakening as though even the light itself wanted to escape. He noticed it then, a pattern, the way objects moved, the way sounds ebbed and flowed, the way the pressure in the air built in certain spots, like invisible tides rising and falling. This wasn't random. The shifts, the disturbances, they followed a rhythm, a design, not chaos, intention. His breath hitched as his eyes darted toward the hallway. For the first time, something became clear. Every object that had shifted, every item out of place, pointed toward the bedroom, the figurine, the tilted lamp, the mirror's warped reflection, a line, a path, and at the end of it, the closet, the one with stays smeared inside. A realization dawned like a slow, creeping dread. It hadn't told him to stay for safety. It had told him to stay for itself. The hum returned low, vibrating, threading into his bones. Only now, it pulsed with something beneath it. A whisper, faint but decipherable. He always leaves. Always. Not this time. A cold electric shiver surged through Elias. He hadn't told anyone he was coming home tonight. No one knew. Not friends. Not family. So how could it know? The TV flickered to life on its own. No sound. Just static. Thick. Oppressive. Like it had depth, like if he stared long enough, something would stare back. Across the screen, faint, almost illegible words formed in the snow of static. Not typed, not digital, handwritten. You know me. Elias staggered back, hitting the wall. No, 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 no. His mind reeled. How? When? What was this? Then the smell hit him. Not strong, subtle. Earth, dust, wet stone, and something coppery. Metallic. He glanced down. A thin, almost invisible line of water snaked from the base of the closet, door trailing toward him like a reaching hand. But it wasn't water. It was too dark, too thick. Every hair on his body stood on end. The closet door trembled, just slightly. Not open, not yet, but waiting. Something behind it pulsed with breath, with thought, with a will, a message, a warning not spoken, but embedded in the very structure of this night. Elias was no longer wondering if this was real. The question had shifted entirely. It was no longer, is this happening? It was now, why? Is it happening to me? And whatever the answer was, it was standing right behind that door, waiting the moment of truth. The line of dark liquid oozing from beneath the closet pulsed, as though drawn toward him by an invisible breath. It wasn't spreading randomly. It was crawling, creeping with a purpose. Elias's instincts screamed, run, get out, leave now. But something else, something deeper, rooted him to the floor. A terrible, suffocating certainty whispered within him. If you run, it follows. If you stay, you might understand. The flashlight trembled in his hand, its beam now reduced to a dull glow. The shadows grew thicker, denser, like liquid velvet swallowing the corners of the room. The hum deepened. It wasn't a sound anymore. It was a presence, a frequency made of thought, intention, and something older than fear itself. Elias swallowed hard and took one step toward the closet. The air grew colder. A second step. The wood of the floor creaked, not like it normally did, but stretched, as if the boards themselves recoiled beneath his weight. A third step. His fingers hovered over the closet handle. The whispers rose again, layered, overlapping, impossible to isolate. They sounded like voices speaking from underwater, fragments of words spilling over each other in a chaotic, hypnotic mess. Stay, stay, forgotten, not forgotten. He always leaves. Then, one voice clearer than the rest cut through. You have to see it now. The handle felt icy beneath his skin. His thumb trembled over it. He hesitated, caught in that razor-thin moment between fight and flight. What's behind this door? But then the apartment shifted. Not figuratively, literally. The walls breathed, and the ceiling bowed down. The floor seemed to flex, as if the entire building had taken a single, massive inhale, and for the first time, the silence broke. Not with sound, not with voice, but with a realization that pressed itself against his consciousness, like an unwanted truth. This wasn't about him discovering something, it was about something discovering him. The mirror behind him cracked thin, veins of fracture splitting across the glass like spider legs. The television screen shattered. The lights, what little remained, snapped out, pitch black, except for the closet. Its outline now glowed faintly, pale, sickly, white, like something behind it was emitting light, or, like the door itself, was a window to somewhere else. Elias stood there, paralyzed, balanced on the edge of a single choice. Open it, and know, or run, and never escape it. A hollow wind whispered through the cracks in the walls. It carried one final message. You've seen too much. And suddenly, the handle turned, not by his hand, by something else. The inevitability of darkness. The handle turned, slow, deliberate, with the agonizing patience of something that had waited a long, long time for this very moment. Click. The latch released. The door didn't swing open all at once. No, it eased just an inch, just enough for the blackness inside to spill out into the room, like ink dropped in water. But this wasn't ordinary darkness. It was thicker, heavier, wrong. A suffocating void that seemed to absorb not only light but thought. A shadow that felt aware. Elias staggered back, pulse pounding so hard it drowned out every other sound. Except, there wasn't silence anymore. Inside that closet, something moved. A slow, scraping shift like the sound of bare skin dragging across wood. Wet. Heavy. He pointed the failing flashlight into the gap. The beam barely penetrated, but what it touched made his stomach seize. Finger marks. Long, smeared, dark impressions scraped along the inside of the door, as if someone or something had clawed at it from the inside. For a very long time. But there was no person, no form, no figure, only impressions. Movements without bodies, shapes without mass. The shadows twisted unnaturally, coiling, folding, in on themselves. And within them something blinked. A single eye, not eyelid, no sclera, just a sphere of glossy black, reflecting his own terrified face back at him in miniature. It didn't move like a living thing. It hovered, drifted forward, as if swimming through liquid air. Then dash more eyes. 4, 6, 12. Emerging, drifting, forward. Ilias's vision blurred. His knees buckled. He stumbled to the ground, hands scraping the floor. This isn't real. This isn't real. But the hum corrected him. It's always been real. The air warped around him. The floor trembled. The walls, they began to stretch, as if the apartment itself was unraveling, folding into the space behind the closet door. And then he understood horribly. Too late. This was never about haunting. This was never about warning. This place, this presence was a trap, a construct designed not to scare him away, but to lure him closer. The eye blinked once, then everything surged forward. The darkness wrapped around his limbs, around his chest, around his throat. Not crushing, not choking, sinking, as if the very shadows were liquid, dragging him down. And in that suffocating pull, a final realization echoed through his bones. This wasn't about dying. No, it was about becoming. Part of it the fear that Stasilas didn't scream. There was no sound left to make. The shadows swallowed his voice before it could even leave his throat. The sensation wasn't pain, not exactly. It was worse. It was absence. The absence of warmth. The absence of self. The terrifying, creeping realization that his mind was no longer just his. As the darkness wrapped tighter, it didn't suffocate him. It invited him, offered something. A place, a role, a purpose that couldn't be spoken, only understood. And in those final slipping moments of clarity, he realized the most horrifying truth of all. This wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. The room, the building, the closet, they were all vessels. Machines of fear, designed to lure, to trap, to feed. Ilias's vision fractured. He wasn't looking at the apartment anymore. He was looking at layers, reflections, copies of copies, places, just like his other apartments, other rooms, other people, all staring at the same glowing crack of a closet door. Some already gone, some, like him, realizing it too late. The voices never stopped. They only shifted, adapted. He saw, now he knows. Leave the door open for the next one. And then silence. The lights flickered. The apartment returned to stillness. The cracked mirror reflected an empty room. The couch was undisturbed. The television silent. The ceramic figure once on its side, now back in its place on the kitchen counter. Everything normal, except if anyone looked closely, if anyone bothered to lean into the bedroom, they'd notice the closet door closed, but not latched. A thin line of shadow still seeping from beneath it. Not enough to notice. Not unless you really stared, not unless it wanted you to. And if you listened carefully, you might just hear it. You shouldn't be here, but by then, of course, it's already too late. Could you sleep after hearing this? What do you think really happened to Elias? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and tell me, would you dare open that door? If you're brave enough, ... There's another story waiting, but remember, some warnings aren't meant to be ignored.